All right, Herd. I have resisted since the beginning of this show at the beginning of the pandemic in March from doing baking. Keenan Skelly broke me down one time and we baked a cake. Ben, aka Blenster, has managed to do it again, and we are going to bake bread on the show. Now, as you know, I consider myself a cook, and the difference between a cook and a baker to me is feeling in the kitchen versus being specific. If you haven't seen what this is supposed to look like at the end, as he just demonstrated it, that looks amazing. If I can produce that this weekend, I will be blown away. Ben, I'm in your capable hands on this. But first question, what is our charity and how do you donate?
I picked the Diana Initiative. That is a 501c3 conference that's put together. I don't really have the donation details. I imagine if you go to the website, they have that. I've volunteered on their hardware hacking village a couple times with some friends of mine who run that. It's a fantastic organization. They're very beginner friendly, and they were also the first name that jumped to mind when you were like charity. I was like, oh, I should pick one of the 15 or so that I support.
Yeah, it's a great initiative. I spoke there during DEF CON 2020 on career hacking. So great organization, giving back to the community. As always, we'd like to see what you make at home, or in this case, what you bake at home. So hashtag Unicorn Chef, share what you produce. What are you drinking for tonight's festivities?
My usual lots and lots of water, because I do not want any more kidney stones. It's been a couple of years. May it never happen again.
That is the one thing I'm most afraid of in life. Am I right to be afraid?
Yes.
I'm afraid. I don't want to have those happen. What can we do? So quick segue. What can we do to prevent kidney stones?
It depends. In my case, I had to make some dietary changes. So I have to regulate my oxalate intake.
What is that?
Oxalate is a part of plants that makes them fibrous. So things like celery and broccoli have a lot of it. Spinach has a lot.
Wait, that's bad for you?
Yes.
So I thought those were good for you. Wait, they're bad for you?
They're bad
and good for you?
They're good for most people. So for me, I had to cut a lot of that out. I also had to cut down on chocolate and cut nuts almost entirely out of my diet.
Nuts too?
Yes.
These are things I eat because I thought they were healthy. They're going to give me kidney stones.
No, they probably won't. For normal people, it's mostly cutting down soft drinks.
I don't drink. Yeah, I don't drink soft drinks, so that works
a lot.
All right, I feel better. Okay.
So I went through a pretty stressful time period.
Cauliflower is good, right?
Yeah. So what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking a local brew from Port City called a Monumental IPA.
So here's the good news for you. If you do end up with kidney stones, your urologist is going to give you a prescription, which is to go home and drink a 6 or a 12-pack. Beer helps flush them out and relaxes you and dulls the pain a bit. I was the first person he said, you're going to love this prescription, who went, actually, no, I would rather drink vinegar.
Okay.
You ever see me at a con and I have some water with me, I will take a sip of something alcoholic. You can see the face that I make. And then you will go, oh, yeah, this is a person that absolutely does not like alcohol. I have a genetic super taster thing. So tannic acids and other bittering agents register way, way, way more for me than they do for most people.
Interesting.
And cilantro tastes like hand soap.
Oh, you're one of those. See, that I feel bad for you. Alcohol, you can live without alcohol. Cilantro, so many good things with cilantro.
I hear it's delicious.
Yeah, but it tastes like soap to you.
Yes, it literally tastes waxy and soapy to me.
Feel bad for you, man. It is delicious. It is delicious. To people like me, it is so good.
Well, speaking of good, we're going to be making some bread. I cut one open earlier. I have it wrapped in plastic because this contains no preservatives whatsoever. There you can see the crumb. There's a lot of big bubbles in there. Perhaps too much. But It's hard. All right. So bread making is, as you alluded to earlier, it's when you're cooking, you can just kind of throw things together and taste the spices and go, that's good.
Yep.
When you're baking, you get a scale out and you measure it very precisely, or it bites you in the hiney. So, it's more precise. So on one hand, it's less beginner friendly to people who are used to throwing things in the pot and see what happens, but it's more beginner friendly to people who have no experience and just want to follow the directions, because the directions are very specific, and if you follow the very specific directions, you will end up with the very specific result.
So I've been wanting to ask you, why is it called a Poolish?
Well, excellent. So that's an excellent question. We're going to start with an overnight ferment, which is called a Poolish, which is 50% water and 50% flour. It's called Poolish because the French got it from Poland, and they referred to the Poles as Poolish. So this is the Polish ferment, and the French word for that is Poolish. So it's basically Polish, but in French. I don't know why.
All right, so it's just a 50% bread or 50% flour, 50% water, and that's like the Polish starter that the French kind of bastardized the phrasing of, and here we are.
Yes. So what we're making is an American version of a French country bed. We're not using French flour and all that, so it's not going to be quite the same. I recommend King Arthur's. You don't need bread flour. Anything with that's perfect. All-purpose flour.
I got the right brand. I'm halfway.
That is exactly what I use, only I buy bigger bags.
Hey, it's not about the size of the flour, man.
All right. All that said, before we start the Poolish, I do need to take the current loaves and put them in the oven. So let's. This is another set that I started in preparation for the show so that I could take photos and videos of the process. This is called a Banneton basket, and it's basically a woven wicker with flour in it, and you can see there's dough in there, and the smooth side's on top. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but these have been proofing for a while, for about an hour, and they need to go into the oven. So I'm going to aim the camera more at the oven. There you go. And then I'm going to grab...
So you said that was called a Bannock?
Banneton.
Bannet. Okay.
Bannaton.
Oh, Banneton.
Yeah. So I have some cast iron in the stove that's been preheating for an hour. It does actually help to have it preheat for the entire hour. And I'm going to pull that out, pull the lids off. Then I'm going to put the loaves in. And we'll talk more about this. I have we haven't told your viewers. So because this is like a 14-hour process, most of which is waiting, I have cheated for this particular thing. So I have prepared some video and some photos, and we'll go over that while we're doing the waiting for this. So let me get this started real quick. All right, now that's done, I'm going to start a timer for 30 minutes. And we're going to let
Ben, what you just demonstrated there was you put the Poolish in a resting pot.
No, that was final dough that had been proofing
Oh.
in the Benetons.
So something completely separate from all of this that is not related. All right.
I had to jump ahead because I just remembered that's been proofing, and if I wait too long, it'll be overproofed.
Well, proofing is when you let dough rise, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm learning the vocabulary. Really, this is not my specialty.
This is the book that I got based on several tweets on Twitter by Ken Forkish. It's called Flour, Water, Salt, Yeast. This is not a paid, sponsored or anything, whatever. I bought this myself. He talks about bread making the way an engineer does, which is very helpful for me. So let's start with that. There are 4 ingredients. There's flour, water, salt, and yeast, but there are actually 6 ingredients. The other 2 ingredients are time and temperature. And if you don't think about time and temperature as ingredients, as integral parts of the process, then you're going to be confused by why you get varying results. It's important to be consistent with these things and to understand the relationship between them. So basically, colder temperatures mean that your yeast is going to be less active, and therefore it's going to take longer to proof or rise. And warmer temperatures are going to accelerate that process. So if you want to make an absolutely fantastic pizza dough, this same recipe, only take half the dough and put it in the fridge instead of putting it in the cast iron. You let it sit there for 3 days. And as it ages in the fridge, you bring that back out, you make your pizza dough with it, and it is otherworldly. Like it will change your life. It is really good pizza dough. I've had too much of it. So let's talk about the process, and I'm going to switch to the video real quick. If we get questions, that's totally cool. I can pause this anytime. All right, so this is what the Poolish is going to look like the next day. You can see it's in a proofing cabinet. You can see there's a lot of moisture on the lid. That's normal. But I'm going to pause right here. We only have a couple of bubbles. This means that it did not get active enough. This is nowhere near ready. So if you see your Poolish and it looks like that, we're not ready. Instead, it should look more like this. Yes, there we go. So we see there's a bunch of bubbles in there and several are popping. And it can even be more active than this. That's all right. And what this is doing is this is allowing our wild yeast and the small amount of natural yeast, not natural, the cultivated yeast that we put into the recipe to really get together and melt. You get more of a sourdough flavor from this bread than you would if you did a quicker technique. So this overnight ferment, when you lift that lid off in the morning, it's going to smell very, very boozy. Like if you've ever brewed beer, it'll smell like that. So let's show how we get to that process.
Which proofing cabinet drawer do you have?
I have one by Brad and Taylor that was a Christmas gift last year from a friend of mine, a very generous friend of mine, because they're not cheap. But he also really likes my bread. And as I'm fond of saying, my friends buy me tools, my smart friends buy me tools for stuff they want done. So he's like, I like your bread. I would like your bread during the winter. This will make that happen. Yes, it will. Going back to time and temperature, it gets cold in my kitchen during the winter, and so bread making became a non-issue because it would take for the Poolish to. I'd come back and there'd be no activity, and I'd wait till the afternoon, and there'd still be very little activity.
So I'm sorry. What is a proofing drawer? Can you show us?
Yeah. I have it's folded away. What it is in general is a controlled environment where the humidity and temperature are maintained electronically. or through other means. So
All right.
basically,
So it's a particular temperature, so I know that the yeast is going to rise at a certain rate.
yeah. So if my kitchen gets down to 66 degrees at night, it doesn't matter. That proofing cabinet will stay at 72, 75, whatever I set it to, and keep the yeast happy. So we want to keep the yeast happy. So to make a Poolish, we're going to need a container of some kind, and we're going to need 500 grams of flour and 1/8 teaspoon of yeast.
1/8 teaspoon of yeast. All right. So I've got my 500 grams of flour. I've got my water, and I've got my yeast. Okay.
All right. I'm going to pull this out, see if we can't. You can see me all right. All right.
What happens if you put too much yeast in?
The yeast will get too happy too quickly, and
Okay.
you won't get the flavor, that flavor that we're looking for.
All right. So we really want just that 1/8 of a teaspoon.
Yeah. So let's hear that. Needs to be washed. What was I gonna say? I lost something. I was gonna tell you something, and I.
All right.
All right,
Oh, okay.
It is good to have a kitchen scale. Everything's done by weight because scoops of flour contain different amounts of flour depending on how much air is in the scoop. So I'm just going to basically pour 500 grams of flour in here. I have done a time or two.
Steve, don't you always want to make beer? Tony, keep the yeast happy. Steve, I also have the King Arthur flour. Just saying, neophyte here. I showed up the right flour by accident.
All right, so there's.
Oh,
we can see.
wait, we were supposed to weigh it.
500 grams of flour.
I thought 500 grams was by volume.
Nope.
This is definitely gonna be interesting to see what I show up with.
And I bought this right before the pandemic hit.
Hey, am I not like winning in terms of ingredients?
Nice, perfect.
I've got the right ingredients. I just don't know what I'm doing.
So let's see here. Now I do not have 1/8 of a teaspoon thing. I have 1/4 of a teaspoon. So I just put half of one of these. So I'm just going to.
I don't have a measuring anything, so I just guessed it.
It's a tiny, tiny amount, as you can see.
That looks like how much I did.
All right. I'm just going to place that in there. And then I'm going to zip tie the bag with as much air squeezed out as I can. Put my 1/4 teaspoon away. And then I like to take a whisk and kind of mix it together just to make sure it's solidly incorporated. Or set that aside. And now I need to find a 2-cup measuring cup, which I have washed. Where did I put it? Oh, there it is. So I got a 2-cup Pyrex measuring cup, and I'm going to put that on the scale. And when I have it on the scale, I'm going to hit the clear button, set it back to 0. And then I'm going to fill it with 500 grams of water.
So I feel confident that I used volume here for the same purpose. Like I'm going to end up with 50-50. That's what I'm going with. All right. I'm personally very curious to see how mine comes out now because
All right, 500 grams of water. Now this water needs to be at a very specific temperature. It needs to be around 85 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's too warm, it'll make the yeast too active. If it's too cold, it'll keep the yeast asleep. So we need 85-degree water. I have found that in this Pyrex, this amount of water, between 20 and 30 seconds, will get me about what I want. But I will also use a thermometer to double check.
I do not have a thermometer. I will be using my pinky to figure this out.
You'll want one for tomorrow because you need 105 degree in the morning. And it's pretty picky about that.
So if I don't have 105, what happens?
If it's too hot, you'll kill all the yeast. If it's too cold, you won't wake it up enough.
Like, how sensitive is this? Like, if I'm like 108
within 5 degrees is probably fine.
So 100 to 110 is like I won't have failed miserably.
Yeah, but closer is better.
Fantastic. All right. Wow. Ben, I'm gonna help you out with anything to do with me. You need to really tell me how specific I gotta be. Ooh. All right. Feels like 85.
All right, mine's clocking in at 86 right now, which is
mine. I mean, I didn't want to like lie, but mine's like 85.7. That's what it feels like. So,
put that away.
Do I pour this in? What am I doing here with my exactly correctly temperatured water?
Yeah. So it's perfectly fine to weigh it and add the water. Once you add the water, then so if you want to go back and weigh things,
I don't have a scale, so none of this was weighed. It was all by eye from measuring by volume.
Well, best of luck. So yeah,
thanks, dude. Look at me pouring things just like he's pouring things. We're the same.
Now, I have done this a few times, so I actually like to have a latex glove, or in this case, a nitrile glove.
Why do you want gloves?
Because I'm going to mix this up.
So I can't use a whisk for this? What should the texture be for this? Or like viscosity? Hello? Nope. Oh, we lost him. All right. Well, it appears we lost the one person who knew what they were doing. I still don't know what I'm doing. I am very concerned about my proportions here because I didn't realize, I didn't know we were supposed to be weighing them. When he said grams, I mean, that looks like volume. Oh no, that's not volume. That is weight. Yeah. A meat thermometer works. All right. I will do that tomorrow. The meat thermometer. Oh, wait. He's back.
All right. Am I back?
Oh, you're back. All right. We lost you. And it was, I had to tippy toe. So what kind of, Ben? Ben?
Hey, there we go. Am I back?
All right. So what should the viscosity, like texture of this be? It looks pretty liquidy on your side.
It does now, but watch what happens as I continue. So the reason we use our fingers is we want to get all of the loose flour at the bottom stirred up.
Okay, and you're using a glove to do that?
Yes, because I'm tired of washing my hands after doing this. Theoretically, if you get your hands wet enough and do it just right, blah, blah, blah. I haven't mastered that yet. I got lazy and bought gloves.
Yeah, I don't trust me to do it just right now, but let's see what happens.
So it's obviously much easier if you can rest it on a counter instead of your knee while live streaming, but we are looking to make a paste out of it. And we want to make sure that there are no dry spots in it. Dry spots in this will cause you more work in the future.
Okay.
All right. So now we have a nice paste, and now I can squeeze all the excess off my fingers.
So how pasty is that? Sorry, your side keeps freezing. Oh, there we go. Okay.
I'm directly over the Wi-Fi, so it's like 4 feet away. But unfortunately, this MacBook has not been great for streaming, which is why I built my new streaming setup upstairs, which is much more aimed around soldering and tiny things and not my kitchen. Strip that glove off. All right. So now we want to take that and just put a lid on it.
Can I cover it with plastic saran wrap? Will that also suffice?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Okay.
Mostly just want to keep the cat hair out. And then,
cat hair? Well, I don't have cats, so no problem.
And rather than set this on a cold granite or ceramic or tile counter, you want to put it on something wood, something that's going to not chill the dough if you don't have a proofing cabinet. You can.
When you say not kill the dough because stone is colder?
You just don't want to, if you chill the dough and pull all the heat out into a heat sink material, then what's going to happen is the yeast will get cold and it'll go back into hibernating. Okay. We won't get up to 85-degree warm water, and we're like, all right, here you are, wake up. All of these lovely nutrients are here. Go to town on them. Produce that call it poop that you make so well, and that's what's going to give us the flavor.
Okay.
So now that that's done, we can go back to the video.
Yes, right. Let's go back to the video.
So we've seen the Poolish, and this is what the Poolish looks like when it's good. And I need to see if I can change, restart. Yeah, turn it off because it keeps putting it back to the beginning. And I would really rather not do that anymore. All right, so here is what you will be doing tomorrow. And that is we will have another 500 grams of flour. 21 grams of salt, 3/4 teaspoons of, and whisk all that together so it's nice and incorporated. And when we have that incorporated, I believe we're going to be, yes, all right. So before we get here, we're pouring the Poolish show in here. And I apologize. I'll switch back to camera for a second and talk through that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that 5-degree water. We're going to need 250 grams of it. So half as much as we put in the first time. So if you're doing it by volume, half the volume you put in. This needs to be around 105 degrees, 108. Not too hot. You don't want to not too cold. We want to wake them up and really get them going. So and then also part of it is the hot water. If we pour it around the outside of the Poolish, it's going to go underneath it, and all of that those gas bubbles in the Poolish going to cause it to float to the top. And then you can just take your glove and just kind of wipe around the edges, and it'll float up. And that's when we can do this, where we add it to the rest of the dry ingredients, which is where we are now. So we're just going to pour that in, along with any of the leftover water. We want to scrape it all out. Use my hand, but it's really hard to hold the camera and use your hand and hold the thing all at the same time. So I do part of it off camera. So once we have that in there, it's time to mix. And oh, there's the Poolish. Yeah, so here's where I'm breaking it free, making sure it floats. You can see how it's floating on that extra water. That should have been ahead of the other shot.
All right, so I'm definitely seeing it is vital that I get gloves. Gloves would be very helpful.
Yes. So here's where we start mixing it. And again, by hand, I bought a very nice, very expensive Ferrari red mixer that I love and specifically got for bread making. And then the bread book says, do not mix with a mixer. Mix by hand. And he's right. You get this is one of the longer parts of the process. It takes a while to incorporate all the flour in. It's also really difficult to do one-handed while you're trying to hold the camera. And so apologies for the vertical video, but this was, I tried very, very hard to train my cat to hold the camera. She was not having it. Just absolutely not interested in being a team player. So if you look here, we've got some dry bits, so we got to keep mixing until all those dry bits are gone. Just keep mixing. Bread making, like this, takes a long time, but it's a lot like being in the Army. It's a lot of hurry up and wait. So there's stuff.
Were you in the Army?
Where I was loading the cast iron. That is done very quickly if you can manage it, and then the rest of it is, go watch a movie. You got an hour.
Hey, Ben, were you in the Army?
No, I'm in LA due to thyroid condition. However, I did work for United States Army Sessions Command for 5 years, so I helped out that way. Made sure that the website, at least several days later, it's going to feel like this, especially your shoulder and your forearm. But eventually, you're going to get to this beautiful oatmeal-looking tacky dough, and that is what we're looking for.
Okay, so all right. I think I'm going to be watching this episode again myself.
This is dry stuff. We want to make sure to not have anything like that in there. So yeah, this is kind of what it's going to end up looking like. And yeah, I think that's just a still picture I took. So this is what it looks like. That doesn't look like bread dough. And the reason for that is it does not have good gluten form. And in order to do that, we're going to fold the dough. If you have properly mixed everything, it's only going to need to be folded twice. I have found that when I don't properly mix everything, I don't spend enough time in that initial squeezing and pulling and squeezing and pulling. Sometimes require 3 or even 4 folds. Folding, no glove needed this time. You want a very, very wet hand. So a bowl of water, and then you just reach in, scoop, and pull. And the first time you do this, you can see how loose it is and how much it pulls up. And again, it's very difficult to do one-handed, but you can see it pulls way high. So what we're doing is we're stretching and aligning the gluten molecule in the dough and giving them a chance to align, and then we're giving them a chance to rest. So we're going to just fold all 4 corners, and then we'll come back to it, and you'll see that it softens up. And again, it's really difficult to do this one-handed while holding the camera. There we go. But you can see it's still really sticky at this point, and it still doesn't look like bread dough. And if I didn't mention that, we're going to wait 20 minutes before that. So after we get the dough looking like that, we wait 20 minutes, then we do the first fold, 15, 20 minutes. It's up to you. Then we're going to do the same thing again. This time, watch what happens. So it'll start off, and it's still going to pull. But by the time we get to the third pull, it's going to be lifting the whole body of the bread. And that's what we're looking for. Still pretty stretchy there. And the reason you see my hand disappear is I'm getting it wet again. Pull. So this, and you can see how it's starting to lift the whole mass up. And then by the time we get to the fourth one, we've got good gluten, and it's pulling the whole thing out. You see how it's holding it there, and it feels firmer, and it's starting to look more like dough. That's what we want to get. After that, we're just going to let it sit there. You can see how it holds its shape a little better, and we wait for 2 or 3 hours until it doubles in size. So like this. And you can see it's looking more like dough now. There's going to be some large bubbles, and you can pop those if you want. Yeah, so here is where another wet hand scooped around the sides can help break it loose so that you can then dump it onto a floured surface. And I could not film this, sorry. So there's the floured surface, there's the dough. It's on the floured surface. Now notice there is a sticky side and a not sticky side. The floured side is not going to be sticky. You're going to want to use dry hands for this as much as possible. And what we're going to do is try to approach it from the floured side. That's why we have so much flour down there. But here we're going to take a special tool. We're going to cut it into 2 loaves, and we're going to separate them. And then my goal is to take the still sticky parts and squish them together. And as I squish them together, I'm going to be pulling from the floured side to try to bring that floured surface around and keep all the sticky parts on the inside. And that's what gives my bread the natural crackles in the crust, is because I squish it together this way. Other people use different methods. You know, sometimes they get prettier stuff. This is super easy. But you can see how I'm just kind of squeezing all that together. Oh, and that's our 30-minute timer. So let's set that there. Pause and let's see here. Where's the oven? There we go. It is time to remove the lids. So you are definitely going to want to wear and keep in mind that every bit of that is hot. There's a lot of heat. Careful if you brush the door or something, you're gonna know it. At least I noticed when I did it. But now we're gonna set 20 minutes on the timer, and we'll show here in the video what it looks like. The end of my little demo video here, but it's really pale right now. All right, these are the bannetons. So those are the baskets I showed you. They've got a bunch of fresh flour in them that has been, I put maybe 3-4 tablespoons in there, maybe a little more, and then I wipe it around the outside. You do not need to use bannetons. You can use regular bowls. You can use other baskets in different shapes. I wanted the flour spiral, and these are how you get that. But keep them dry, keep them clean, put fresh flour in them every time. And then when we take those 2 loaves, you notice this is the smooth side. So the side that I squished together with all the sticky bits is on the bottom. And this is now on the top. We're going to let that sit in the bannetons covered, which I should have a picture of them covered. All right, did I do that? I did not do that. I put a cover on them and just let them sit for an hour. This is also when you want to preheat your oven. As you preheat your oven, you want to preheat your cast iron time. You heat soak it for a long time. That's why we're preheating for an entire hour. And you notice I have the lids cracked on this. That is because if you use any kind of oil to condition your cast iron and you leave the lid on, when you pull the lid off, you may get some smoke coming out, and that might set off your smoke detector. Ask me how I know. If you leave it cracked, it comes out as it forms instead of in one big cloud, and Bob's your uncle. So that preheats for a while, which we have done. Then we put the bread in it. These are flaming hot. It's hard to tell from the picture, but I've taken the lids off and I've set them there on the stove. And then just as you saw earlier in the video, we take the bread out of the banneton and we drop it in there. Now, if you're not happy with the placement, as I was not on the one on the right, when you pick it up with your oven mitts, you can shake the Dutch oven and it'll center itself. So if it's off on one side, that's of me taking the lids off of that earlier loaf, so you can see what that looks like at the actual stove level. So there you can see how blonde the bread is. This is where our current 2 loaves are. They're nice and blonde, but in 20 minutes, they're going to be beautifully caramelized. And that's what we're doing right now with the lids off. With the lid on, we basically controlled the moisture in the environment. The bread self-steamed. Now we're, with the lids off, we're baking and we're doing the same Maillard reaction that happens when you make a steak. It's the same exact crust, believe it or not. Same chemistry is happening, and that's what gives this bread this dark color and just an absolutely delicious crust. So yeah, that is the process.
I am so intrigued, as I think several people are, at what shows up when I make this.
I am too. So sorry I had to cheat and hack your thing and do it.
Not at all. Like I told you, Ben, at the beginning, this is your show. There's a reason that we have avoided baking to this point. I definitely also don't know what I'm doing. And I look forward to sharing what the result is, whatever comes out. I am going to share it. You're going to see it.
Yeah, 15 more minutes on our loaves of bread. One of the cool things that happens when we pull these out of the oven and tip them out of the cast iron and onto a cooling rack. One tip you could use, which I did not this time, is you can put some parchment paper in there. Makes it easier to lift out. Whatever oven safe parchment paper you have, cooking grade. But you want to put it on a cooling rack, and when you do, it's going to crackle in a really cool way as the internal structure comes together. And after it comes out, you can't cut it for at least 10 minutes. 15's better. You'll let too much of the moisture out and end up. Let it sit the way you might a steak if it's cooked a certain way.
So if you don't have a cooling rack, what is an alternative?
I mean, you ever make cookies?
I don't bake anything. I don't bake anything. This isn't like, oh, bread's different than cookies. What's that?
This is a standard cooling rack. So
That looks like something in my oven. I could pull out one of the trays from the oven and like use that.
As long as it's not the same temperature that the oven was.
I will pull one out in advance because I only need one to bake on.
Yeah.
So we've got about 12 minutes to kill. Is that what you said?
13 and a half. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's start with what mistakes in life I made to come to this point. But then flip it back to why are you here?
I am here at your generous invitation. And probably because I post too many thirst traps of bread on Twitter.
You do post a lot of thirst traps of bread on Twitter, and I would love to try this bread compared to whatever I end up with. Is there any way to make that happen? Can I try this bread?
How far away from Louisville are you?
Louisville, Kentucky. I am in Arlington, Virginia. This is one of the problems with DerbyCon no longer being in existence because that would be my annual trip to Louisville.
Yeah, so I'm about 8 hours from you, I think. At least I think it was 9 hours when I drove down to ShmooCon.
ShmooCon is mid-January. Are you going to be at Shmoo?
I'm really, really wanting to. I don't think I will get a ticket, but I will probably LobbyCon it just because I haven't seen.
If there is any conference you don't need a ticket to, it is definitely Shmoo.
Yeah.
I pretty much just camp out at the restaurant there in the Hilton for the day and a half.
Hacks for Pancakes very generously gave me a ticket my first year at Shmoo, and drawn a blank on her Twitter handle. Another one of the rock stars let me share an Airbnb with her, and that was the only way I could afford it at that time. I have a better job now, so I'm doing a little bit better, so I should be Airbnb or something and drive out there.
All right. I would love to try the bread, and I might be hosting an independent event, in which case we can possibly showcase that with some food, which is what I'm good at.
Absolutely.
So mid-January, my friend, that's the plan. Okay.
That sounds fun. Yeah.
All right. So tell us and demonstrate this new and wonderful job that you have now, Ben.
All right. So I work for. I got hired by a company called June. That got bought by a company called Weber. and I was hired to work on this lovely device here, which is a smart oven, and it is really cool. It's got a whole bunch of recipes in here that you can go through and do. It also has a camera inside. So, for example, if I wanted to make some bacon, take a tray. Let me get some bacon. We'll get ourselves a couple pieces of bacon. We'll put it on the tray. All right. With apologies to all the vegetarians. All right, there we go. Last two. So we just take the bacon.
That felt like a very Mike move, the way you were doing the bacon in front of the camera.
Nice. Well, I'm endeavoring to be halfway decent at this. So we have our strips of bacon. And all we have to do is put it in. We can see that it recognizes that it's bacon. And it's got some tips for us. Hit continue.
Just the tip?
Yeah. Hit start pan frying. And that's all. That is it. Now, in a couple of minutes, my phone will chime. In about 11 minutes, my phone will chime and say, hey, bacon's done. And then I will have bacon.
So what do you do for June/Weber?
I am a software QA automation engineer. That means it's my job to break things and write detailed reports.
So you find all the ways that the oven can screw up the bacon and then fix it?
No, we actually have a whole culinary team that does the recipes. And they're always coming up with new stuff and testing things. It's crazy. Back when we had an office, because I've never been there, but some of my new friends / coworkers tell me, there'd just be weeks where they're like, we're making blank, and you get a bunch of it. Sometimes it's steak, sometimes it's bacon, sometimes it's bread.
Can you make steak in that oven? And would you? Tell me the truth.
Theoretically, you can. I've not yet tried it.
Theoretically, yes. Thank you. Theoretically.
That said, with the premium setup, you get this really nice, very heavy cast iron searing pan. So with this, you could theoretically do a decent steak. I just haven't tried it because I have a tried and true method that I use. And I don't want to screw up a steak.
And so, that's kind of where I was going. I mean, like
that's it. This thing hasn't screwed up anything yet. It's friggin' magic.
So what else have you made in there?
So it is a dehydrator. That I can't tell you about. It's a new feature coming out soon. It's a broiler. It'll bake. I've done lazy stuff like corn dogs, which I was gratified to see that it recognized and cooked for me. I've done pizza rolls. I've done wings. I actually did that just the other night. I've roasted a chicken in there. It knows the difference between a whole chicken and a spatchcock chicken. For those who don't know, that's where you split it and open it up. You split it on the breastbone and open it out wide, so it's flatter. It cooks more.
If you want to watch a really funny episode, Alyssa and Trevor making spatchcock chicken with me about 5 months ago. Funniest episode we've done yet.
That sounds fantastic, actually.
You get to watch Alyssa smack the chicken. He actually smacks the chicken. They both were not the most expert cooks. So we were kind of learning as we went. It was very funny.
I had a lot of fun. I've done a bunch of cookies in this thing because all you got to do is make the cookies, put the dough balls on the tray, put the tray in there, say yes, cookies, bake. Had too many of those, but it's really cool. There are a bunch. The recipe team comes up with some really cool stuff. There's a couple of Middle Eastern recipes that I want to try at some point. I get busy and then I get tired, and also it's just me and the cat.
Yeah.
Well, this is better at cooking smaller meals than my main stove, and it's more efficient and all that. It's still usually more food than I'm going to eat, and I've spent a lot of my life eating a lot of leftovers, so it's not something I'm as excited about anymore.
Yeah, true that.
Here, less than 5 minutes on the bread before it comes out, so I should probably prepare a place for it.
Yep, I am plated for what I am going to demonstrate.
Nice. If you want to show that off, go for it.
Well, no, because I just unveiled it at the same time as you.
There's a certain salt I heard that was good for on steak about it spiking the meat better.
Oh, kosher salt. Kosher salt is not as refined as regular table salt. So
it also doesn't have iodine in it.
Yeah, but in terms of like piercing the meat, kosher salt is more jagged at a molecular level.
And one of the things that I recommend for my bread is iodine-free salt because it will affect the flavor just a little bit.
And on that note, the special salt that I used in what I am unveiling today is, in fact, magic unicorn salt. What operating system does your super fancy oven run?
June OS Lite. Or no, this runs June OS. The
but June OS is obviously what, a Linux derivative?
Yeah. It's Android based.
Yep.
But it's a pretty cool piece of technology. My job is the brain in the box side. So, and this is what I did at GE Appliances for many years. I take the boards that control everything, and I put them in a box, and then I design and build all of the hardware to interface with that, so that they think that they are a real boy in the real world doing real world things, and then I mercilessly lie to them about them. So it's like that philosophy 101, brain in the jar thought experiment. How can you prove you're not? They don't know that they're the brain in the jar and that I am pulling all their strings.
That is a really dark way to explain a test range. And we lost him again? Come back, Ben. Hello. Unicorn Chef to Ben. Ground control to Major Ben. Nope. Oh. All right. Well. No. Yeah. We definitely lost him. Well, I will show off what I made. So, based on the fact that I knew that tonight's recipe was going to be bread, and given that with my travel and my conference schedule that I would not be able to properly do the bread in advance, although now that we've seen me doing this live, me doing proper bread probably was a question mark to begin with. I got some loaves of bread, and I made meatball subs from scratch. So this was me making bread. I made a sauce over here, and I was baking the meatballs while we were doing this, and just a simple tomato sauce with anchovies and basil. Oh, Ben's back.
Sorry about that.
All right, you're back. You want to?
Yeah,
You want to bring us home?
What was I saying? Yeah, so I put the bread in a jar, and then I make sure that it does all the things it's supposed to do, and very importantly, I make sure that it understands anytime an error happens, that it captures that error and handles it safely. So it's my job to make sure that if it gets into a weird state, that it recognizes that it's a weird state, logs that correctly, handles it properly, and guess what that is?
That is your bread being done?
That is. So let's.
All right, so this will be our final screenshot, is taking this out and demonstrating it for the audience. And then I will show off what I made. Oh, right. All right. You got to get in frame with it so we can take our pictures together.
There we go.
So those are my meatball subs.
Nice. Ooh, now these are fun.
All right. So if you could quickly touch on the Diana initiative again.
Yeah, so the charity I'm supporting is a women-led conference called the Diana Initiative. I've been privileged to volunteer in their hardware hacking village. It's kind of nice not having to lead one, letting someone else lead it and volunteering in it instead. That's fantastic. It is run by some wonderful friends of mine and some awesome people who know a lot about electronics. And we in the hardware hacking village, we tell you the basics of, capacitors, resistors, the simple stuff. So you can be a beginner, come in and do all that. We have surface mount and through hole soldering demos and all sorts. Oh, and that was the 1 minute timer on the bacon, which will be done in about 30 seconds.
All right. Any last words for our audience before I unveil after this episode in a couple of days what I make?
I hope that you know that I love you all and that I'm pulling for you, and that it's rough out there, but we're all in this together.
All right. #Unicorn Chef. Share what you make, just like I'm going to share whatever comes out of my oven.